Gurave Namah. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trilokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah. Tvameva Mata cha Pita Tvameva bandhuscha sakha Tvameva Vedyadravinam Tvameva sarvam mama deva deva Tvameva sarvam mama deva deva. Jai Guru. Om Sahana Bhavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karavavahai, Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Did we have a Zoom bomber?
No. Just recorded the meeting. So
There's
like automated audio.
Okay. So we are in towards the end of the text, and we're in the section of the marks of the realized seer. And many of our scriptures have sections like this. Of course, the most famous is the last 18 verses at the end of the second chapter of Gita, the Sthita Prajna Purusha section. So Shankara does his own take on this. And as we mentioned last week, we do not use these verses to check out other people. Oh, is so-and-so realized? Oh, I don't think so. He doesn't say so in the book. He doesn't match it. Or she doesn't match this. Oh, yeah. You can't really tell unless you are a woman or a man of wisdom. One person of wisdom can recognize another. The rest of us, hard to say. So what are these verses for? It's for us to check out our own sadhana. And if you don't have this quality yet, then make that a practice. They come spontaneously for the jnani, the person of wisdom. The rest of us, we practice. Any thoughts on this? And I think we did a couple of them last week. Were you here last week, Puneet?
Yes. We're on 429.
Is that in the section, the marks of the realized seeker?
Yes. Yeah, we did 3 of them.
3 of them. All right. So 429. Do you have enough light?
Yes. Oops. I don't need to unmute.
No.
Yasya sthita bhavet prajna yasyanando nirantaraha prapancho vismrita praya sajivan mukta ishyate. He who has steady wisdom, who experiences endless bliss, who has forgotten the phenomenal world, he is considered a jivan mukta.
Yes. So here the term is jivan mukta. So a person who is a liberated soul, who has a liberated personality. We talked about this a bit last week. We contrast the jiva mukta with the videha moksha, or the person who's liberated beyond the body, meaning after you die, you go to some heaven-like realm, Brahmalok, and at the end of the age, then you're liberated. That's one theory. But Vedanta says, no, you can have freedom right here, right now. Now, let's talk about this term, endless bliss. Ananda. We have these three great words that the scriptures use to point to the self. Satchit Ananda. Sat. It is pure existence. Chit, pure awareness, shines. Ananda, bliss absolute. Well, if that's the nature of myself, then I'm having that all the time. Oh, I had a crappy day today. What's this endless bliss stuff about? So we have to understand that our assumption of what Ananda means may not be what it really means. So I suggest we start defining Ananda as no sorrow reaches there. Physical pain gets as far as my body. Emotional turmoil gets as far as my mind. Doubt gets as far as my intellect. But none of it touches me. I'm beyond all the perturbations of mind. Vast, empty, supremely peaceful. But when the mind lets go of its vikshepa shakti, its projecting power into the world, I want, and gives up all struggle, like the waves in the storming ocean after the tempest, shanti, 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 peace. So the mind becomes blissful when it rests in the self. This is the meaning of yoga. What it means to join, to be united. What gets united with what? It isn't that my individual soul gets pasted onto God. It's that the mind quits its extroversion and it comes home. It's in union, it's unified, it's one with my essential nature. And what is the view of the phenomenal world? It is like a dream. It is mithya, just illusion. Pratibimba, like the reflection in a mirror. So that mind no longer extroverts into the world with anxiety or longing or sorrow. So if your mind is still extroverting in the world in that way, more work to be done. Check out our own progress. Questions about this? Next verse.
लीनधीरपि जागर्ति जाग्रत् धर्मविवर्जितः बोधो निवार्सनो यस्य स जीवन्मुक्त इष्यते. He who has merged himself in Brahman yet is alert, but without the characteristics of wakefulness, whose knowledge is free from desire, he is considered a Jivan Mukta.
Yes. So he's merged himself in the self. Actually, it's really the other way around. It's seeing the unreality of any mental concept of self. In Nirvikalpa, we had that long section. Mind explodes. An exercise I like to do frequently with people who have a taste of this. They'll come in with all sorts of problems. Blah, 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 blah. I listen, and after a while we settle down. Then we just kind of tune up together. And I'll say something. Now listen to the traffic. Who hears the traffic? Do you get that vast, empty space of consciousness? Where did your ego go? Where did the person go? Gone. Instead, there's just Brahman. So it's not that something merges with something else. It's something is taken away. And what's real remains. And again, what is it that the Jnani knows about the mind? The struggling, longing mind is the suffering mind. Let go. I'm not unhappy because I don't have what I want. I'm unhappy because I'm wanting. So because she doesn't take the world as real anymore, it's too much work to struggle in the world. Mind stays home. Shunyata, just empty. This is the mark of the Jivan Mukta. Any questions on this verse? Next one.
Shanta sansara kalanaha kalana kalavanapi nishkalaha yasya chittam vinishchittam sajivan mukta ishyate. He whose concern about the world has been stilled, who has a body consisting of parts yet is without parts, whose mind is free from anxiety, he is considered a Jivan Mukta.
Yes. So, what is this world? What is samsara? Only three thoughts. Jiva Bhavana, I think I'm a person. Thought number one. Thought number two, there's a goal. I'll be happy when, it'll be better if, and that goal only assumes one of two possibilities. I either need to fix the world or I need to fix me. And the third element, struggle. That's it. That's the world. Person of wisdom has given that up. There is no personal me. It's an illusion. There is no world out there. I cannot be diminished. I cannot be improved. And there's nothing to fix. And then the mind gives up struggle. All going to be okay. This is the mark of the Jivan Mukta. Any thoughts on this verse?
Can I ask you a question?
If I got two people with questions? Hello?
I got one so far. I don't know. Is there anyone else?
Nope, go ahead.
Should I not do, I know you said don't fix the world. Should I not do things for people or try and fix them through love?
Should you not do what?
Things for people or try and fix them through love.
Okay. Should you be solving the problems of people in your dreams?
No.
Why not?
Well, they're an illusion. I understand the analogy.
Okay, I think you've answered your own question.
Okay, well, thank you.
Now, Justin, it all has to do on where we are identified. If you are identified as a person, then the world is going to seem real and there's going to be stuff to do. If you let that go, mind you, we're at the end of the book. For the person of wisdom, if there's an action to be taken, they just act intuitively, which is not the same as compulsively.
Okay, so they act intuitively but not compulsively.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Who can tell me what the bodhisattva vow is in Buddhism? Somebody out there must know it. Do you know what, Puneet?
I know some of it.
What?
Some of it is, I will not leave this world until every soul is enlightened.
Yes, I vow to stay and work on helping beings until all sentient beings are enlightened, and the number of sentient beings is infinite. Who is it who said that? That's very good. I can't see a face.
Yeah, it was
talking?
Ron.
That was Ron. Okay. And what does the Jnani say? I don't see any sentient beings out there.
Or everyone's already enlightened.
There isn't anybody out there. There's only one of us. That's like saying, I, the dreamer, vow to enlighten all the people in my dream. It is a trick vow. And I won't go into its incredible value. But in the end, remember, there's no other beings out there. There's only one of us here. Very interesting.
Are you agreeing or disagreeing with that vow?
I think you'll have to work that one out for yourself. I'm just presenting information.
Okay, thank you.
Depends on from what viewpoint you're looking. If you think you're an individual, by all means take the Bodhisattva vow. If you're a man of wisdom, I don't see any other sentient beings. I see only the self. Next one.
Vartamanepi dehesmin chayavadanuvartine ahanta mamata bhavo jivan muktasya lakshanam. The absence of the I and mine concepts, even in this body which persists like a shadow, this is the indication in a Jivan Mukta.
Yes. So there's no I-ness or minus. Everything in the phenomenal world is objectively apprehended with equanimity, without any ownership, including the body. It's just another one of the Lord's manifestations. I am ever the consciousness in which this whole play rises and falls. Next one.
Atita nanusandhanam avishyada vicharanam audasinyam api prapte Jivan Muktasya Lakshanam. No thought for the enjoyments of the past, no thought for the future, and indifference even for the present. This is the indication of a Jivan Mukta.
So, most of us, when we think of the past, we go, oh, that was so wonderful when I went on that vacation. Oh, that was such a wonderful concert that I went to. Or, oh, that was the best sex I ever had. Let me repeat it. And then about the future, what am I going to do about the future? Where will I go? What about my 401k? What about mortgage rates? My stock portfolio? So the person of wisdom has no concern about the past, no concern about the future, and indifference, equanimity to the present. Now, one of my favorite stories in Yoga Vasishta is about a demon king. And many of you have heard me tell this story before or who have read it. And the story is set in the midst of the war between the Devas, the demigods, and the Asuras, the demons. This is the constant war that's going on in heaven. So the king of the demons, whose name escapes me right now. Anyway, he creates these 3 super demons without ego. Terminator Asuras. So they go marching into battle, and because they have no ego, they have no fear, and they're wiping out the Devas. Devas don't know what to do. They're losing. So they run off to heaven and they talk to Vishnu. They say, what are we going to do? Vishnu says, okay, this is your strategy. When you're fighting the demons, feign defeat and run away. Do it repeatedly. So the Devas take his advice, and they're fighting the demons and the big Terminator demons, and they go, oh, we are defeated, we are defeated. Run away, run away, run away. Then they go into battle again. Oh, we are defeated, We're defeated. Run away, run away, run away. The Terminator demons, having had victory, engaged in what we call chintya. This is the word that's used in Yoga Vasishta. In Hindi, it means worry. In Sanskrit, it's a little more nuanced. It means after the fact rumination over that prior event, positive or negative. Oh, that was so wonderful, or oh, that was so terrible. So once the Terminators began to engage in chintya, ego formed. I'm a powerful demon. I can wipe out those devas. Once ego had formed, the devas could defeat them. They killed them. Well, the king of the demons said, okay, I'm not going to fall for this twice. So he creates 3 more super demons. Terminator 2. They not only did not have ego, but they were Shrotriyam. What does Shrotriyam mean? Well versed in the scripture. What it means is they had the tools to keep ego from reforming. So the Devas said, this is going to be a snap. We'll do the same thing Vishnu told us to do last time. Feign defeat. We're defeated. We're defeated. No. Do it over and over again. But the Terminator 2 demons, they didn't fall for it. As thoughts of egoism arose, they went, no. Oh. They could not be defeated. So the Devas were screwed. This time they went to Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva says, there's nothing you can do. Only I can solve this one. So he comes down onto the battlefield, and with his discus, he just wipes out the Terminators, which all attained liberation because they were without ego. Interesting point. Even asuras can be jivan mukta. But the story is incredibly important because the cause of reforming ego is the mind returning to the past, projecting into the future, concern over the present. Very important story. Very important story. Puneet has been twisting my arm. It's all on backwards now. So I think once we complete Yoga Vasishta, we may take up the text, the essence of Yoga Vasishta. We have copies that have come from India. So I think that will be a lovely text to take up. We haven't studied it in several years now.
All right. The one from the quote you always give us?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
One of my favorites. I quote parts of it all the time.
Well, I love that quote myself, so I'd like to read it. Yeah.
All right. Any other thoughts on this verse? Next one.
Guna dosha vishishtesmin swabhavena vilakshane sarvatra samadarshitvam jivan muktasya lakshanam. Looking everywhere with an equal eye on this world, riddled with elements possessing merit and demerit, characteristically different one from the other, this is the indication of a Jivan Mukta.
So the Jivan Mukta has this equality of vision. He looks on a saint and a sinner the same. I used to say to people, I do on occasion, we need to love as God loves. God has no taste. God loves people you and I would have nothing to do with. True story. Mark, you might have even been at this camp because it was up at Krishnalaya. And there was one of the delegates there, one of the people at the camp. And I think he had some mental illness, but he used to wear headphones all the time and sing bhajans off key, very loud. And he drank. And most of the people on the camp just couldn't stand him because they thought he was disruptive. Now, Swamiji wore Rolex watches. I don't think he really particularly cared about them, but for some reason, rich devotees would give him watches, would give him Rolex watches. So this obnoxious person gets a personal, individual audience with Swamiji, who takes off his Rolex and gives him a Rolex watch. Comes back from the big house, his eyes wide. Swamiji gave me his Rolex watch. Of course, a lot of the rich Indians were horrified. The Master Jesus said, I say, love your enemies. Even the Gentiles love their friends. I say, love your enemies. So it's a personal love that is impersonal. What is love? For now, take this definition. Genuinely wishing the well-being of the other. All sorts of stories of animals coming to Ramana Maharshi. Still haven't looked at that video. I'm sorry. And all sorts of people. And his incredible love for them all. So you and I, we need to practice it. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Ishtanishtartha samprapto samadarshitayatmani ubhayatra vikaritvam jivan muktasya lakshanam. When confronted with things pleasing or painful, to be unperturbed in both cases by maintaining an equal attitude. This is the indication of a Jivan Mukta.
Now, this is an interesting point. I'm seeing the little box. Am I still online?
Yes.
Okay, what's this little box say? Continue. Okay. So this is an interesting point. Many people think when they enter the spiritual life, they're going to hit all the green lights of life. And I tell you, your life will get better. It'll get better because we normally stop putting out discordant, fearful, anxious, resentful energy. Just from the law of karma, what goes out comes back. But many people think, oh, I'm never going to get sick, or I'm never going to have a tragedy, or I'm never going to have a huge financial loss. It's not necessarily so. Bad things happen to good people. And when we get into the discussion of prarabdha karma, which is coming up, we'll talk more about that. What yoga promises us is we'll be able to match calamity with serenity if it comes. Everything in life is okay. So the yogi keeps this even keel. And I kind of like to think of the sine wave, that's life. It's in every part of life. The ocean tide comes in, tide goes out. Seasons rotate, day, night. This cycle of stuff seems to be the way of the world. But the Jivan Mukta keeps equanimity through it all. And even dying is safe. It's one of those things Ram Dass said that I love. Any thoughts on this? Next one.
Brahmananda rasa swada sakta chitta tayayate antabarhi ravikyanam jivan muktasya lakshanam.
Paramananda rasa. I love it. Go ahead.
Constantly engaged in tasting the bliss of Brahman, a sannyasin entertains no distinctions of within and without. This is the indication of a Jivan Mukta.
Yes, yes. Brahmananda rasa. Paramananda rasa. Rasa means juice. So like when you get an orange and you squeeze out the juice, that's the rasa, the taste. So the person of steady wisdom, the Jivan Mukta, the sannyasi, he calls it here, the person of renunciation, has this trick that he can drink deeply of the bliss of Brahman. And this idea of tasting is such a vivid metaphor. The Sufis use it a lot, at least in the Mevlevi order. They'll say, oh yes, so-and-so, she has the taste. That means not only is she tasting the infinite, but you can taste it when you're around her. And then one of my favorite psalms in the Hebrew scriptures, I think it's 34. Taste and see the goodness of the Lord. The Christians think it's about communion, but it's a Hebrew psalm. And what it means is this Atmaramana, this reveling in the self. Paramananda rasa, the juice of supreme bliss. Any questions or thoughts on this? And again, it's paradoxical. How do I experience the bliss of the self? Get rid of the identification and the attachment to the world. It's my natural state. I don't need to then do something to be blissful. All I have to do is get rid of the mind's stupidity. That's all I have to do. Next one.
देहेन्द्रियादौ कर्तव्ये ममहं भाववर्जितः औदासीन येन यष्टेस्त्य जीवन्मुक्त लक्षणः. Having no idea of I and mine with regard to the body, sense organs, etc., nor to duties, living with an attitude of indifference, this is the indication of a Jivan Mukta.
So he repeats the same idea, having no idea with I or mine, with any possessions, with the body. And here he adds to it the sense of duties. Most of us run around thinking there's still something I need to do. I need to meditate more. I need to give up this, that, and the other thing. I need to accomplish this. I need to be a better person. I need to get rid of these character defects. There's always a project. For the Jivan Mukta, no projects left. Done it all. Again, the lit Vedantins, whose minds are full of vulgarities, read a verse like this and they give up all self-effort. With the result is they rationalize their misery. Again, we go back to Shankara's image of the stick that's used to stir the fire. That's all my doshas, the defects, the kleshas, the attachments. And this mumukshu, this mumukshutva, stir up, stir up, stir up. Let it all burn up. All burn up, turn to ash. And then at the end, toss on the stick. But that's when you toss the stick on it. But you can practice this in your meditation. Take all your projects and just put them on the shelf. And be content right here, right now. Next one.
विज्ञात आत्मनो यस्य ब्रह्मभाव श्रुते बलात् भवबन्ध विनिर्मुक्तः स जीवन्मुक्तलक्षणः. Deep-rooted knowledge, that is the self, is Brahman, affirmed by the scriptures and free from the bondage of transmigration. This is the indication of a Jivan Mukta.
Yes. So their knowledge is deeply rooted. I am Brahman. The Brahman is myself. We talk about the four Mahavakyas. Prajnanam Brahma. Brahman is consciousness. I am Atma Brahma. This self is Brahman. Tattvamasi. You are that. The fourth one is not Aham Mahatma. Aham Muni. It isn't I am a great soul. I am a wise man. I am an enlightened being. No, it's aham brahmasmi. I am Brahman. I am that ground of being. I'm not a person. Chidananda Rupa. I have the form of bliss consciousness. Very important point. So the mark of the realized person, other people may think she's realized. She knows I am Brahman. Very subtle, but very important distinction. Any questions on this? Next one.
Dehendra Yeshavan Bhava Idam Bhava Tadanyake Yasya no Bhavata Kwapi Sa Jivan Mukta Ishyate. He who has no ego with regard to body, sense organs, etc., nor the concept of this with regard to other things, he is considered a Jivan Mukta.
So the Jivan Mukta is not identified with the body. Hello? We had a laugh.
Sorry, that was David. I was just thinking about how I just got a new car and I've been enjoying that so much. That just struck me as very, very much not here.
I'm glad you shared it. Yes. Well, I will tell you the truth about your car. It's going to get scratched, and at some point it'll be a junk heap. Don't worry.
Yep, that sounds about right.
Yeah. But you got the point. You got the point.
Yep.
Now, it doesn't mean, there's another story that comes from Yoga Vasishta. I won't tell those. But we will always have preferences. There's nothing wrong with preferences. But you know if it's a desire that's an insistence, that a new car is what you need to make you happy. If the old car doesn't work, by all means, get a new car. Hopefully you will enjoy it. No point in buying a new car that you don't enjoy. But it's just a car. It's just a car. One of the slogans I like, I made it up. So many people say everything is a gift from God. I don't think that's true. Everything's on loan from God. God is the ultimate repo man. And you will never know when he's going to take it back. David, you may walk outside tomorrow and your car's stolen. Will you be okay with that? Just take care of business. That's what we're working on. Next one.
No pratyag brahmano bhedam kadapi brahma sargayoh pragyaya yo vijanati sa jivan mukta lakshanaha. Through knowledge, he who never distinguishes between the jiva and Brahman and between the universe and Brahman is indicated as a jivan mukta.
Yes. So the person knows that who I am, myself, is Brahman on all levels. I was talking with a student, I think it was yesterday, who's had a breakthrough and who's really getting the sense of where they're seeing that everybody's mind is just like theirs. And the things that used to irritate them, they see, well, I do that too. And it's opened up enormous tolerance and compassion for this person. And what we need to understand is if you deeply inquire into any level of manifestation, it resolves itself into Brahman. So you take matter. So we on the surface say, this is my body over here, and that's Puneet's body over there. Well, if you start to break it down into the molecules and then the atoms and all that sort of stuff, you know, the whole idea of my body, your body just disappears. One of my favorite meditations, you go in the refrigerator, you grab an apple. Apple is other than my body. So now you eat the apple. What's the point when the apple becomes my body? It's a fascinating meditation. Or the air. Who else has been breathing all this air? Then you go to the level of mind. And you think, oh, I have these issues that I have from childhood. You know, that person, they're just like my mother or just like my father. Well, where did your parents get those issues? And their parents' parents. So who does this stuff belong to? We begin to see that mind itself isn't personal. It's the total mind in the end. We just keep passing the stuff around, you know. Good idea, bad idea. This opinion, that opinion. Or vasanas. If you start tracing where did my vasanas come from, if you really inquire, they go all the way back to the Big Bang. That was the cause of causes of everything. So even at the level of Prakriti, of matter, you can't find anything individual and personal. And certainly at the level of consciousness, the self in me is the self in all and the grounded being of the universe. I am Atma. It's marvelous meditation. Next one.
Sadhu bihi pujyamane smina pidmanopi durjanai sambhavo bhavedasya sa jivan mukta alakshanaha. He who feels the same when his body is worshipped by the by the virtuous or tortured by the wicked is considered a jivan mukta.
So everybody gets their allotted dose of praise and censure in this life. The person of steady wisdom has equanimity in the face of both. want to have a mind like a sieve. When all the praise comes, or even worship if you're somebody special, let it pass through. Doesn't mean you're rude to people. People give you a compliment, the appropriate response is thank you. Not false humility. Oh, that's not true. I'm just, you know. Then you discount the other people. You deprive them of their desire to be gracious. So if someone compliments you, you say thankful, but don't believe it. Let it pass through. And if someone's critical, don't believe it. Let it pass through. None of it is true about Brahman. The self is near malam, without any taint, without any dirt. Also without any virtues. Any thoughts on this? Let me expand this a bit. Most of us are more than willing to endeavor to renounce the suffering that we feel when criticized. And sometimes it's hard. The sneaky part of this is that's not where the identification happens. The identification happens on the positive side of the equation. So if your boss says, great job, you're an effective worker, you're such an excellent manager, you've done so well on this project, you get 5 stars on your next review. If your mind goes, oh, and you suck it up, then 6 months later, when you get a bad review, what did I wrong? And then what do we usually do? That crazy manager, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Lame. That doesn't mean we don't take objective information about our behavior in what we call vyavahara, the transactions of the world. If, for example, your boss says, your figures were inaccurate on such and such a report. Thank you. I'll go back and check them more diligently. We don't personalize compliments or criticism. Any thoughts on this?
You said, what do you mean by not personalized? We're supposed to take objective criticism, though, aren't we? On
You
our
let
behavior.
the criticism be about the action, not about you.
Not about your being. I understand that, like the ego.
Well, for example, if, say, your boss says that you did a task improperly or didn't do a task at your job,
Mm-hmm.
you can look first of all at the objective facts. Did you in fact do the work? If you did the work, thank you for sharing, you let it go. If you didn't do the work, gee, you're right. But you don't then let your mind go, oh, I'm a piece of shit. I'm a terrible person. I can't ever do this. I'm a bad person. That's when you start to personalize it, make it about you. Do you see the difference?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
All right, next one.
Yatra pravishta vishaya paretirita nadi pravaha iva varisharo linanti sanmatrataya na vikriya mutpadayanta yesha yatir vimuktaha. The sannyasin in whom the sense objects channeled by others are received like flowing rivers into the ocean, producing no change because of his absorption in existence absolute, is truly liberated.
Yes. So this idea of like rivers flowing into the ocean doesn't grasp at the rivers. And according to, relative river flow, it doesn't cause the ocean's level to rise. Global warming, it may be different. But by and large, we say it doesn't cause the ocean to rise. So also for the woman of knowledge, when good fortune comes to her, it's like a drop of water on a blade of grass tipped into the ocean. You may have heard me use the term, the world becomes trinkets and baubles, pretty to look at. It's like a person getting their clothes out of the dumpster, takes a raggedy shawl, puts it around them, finds some costume snap beads, puts it around their neck, walks down the street as if they're dressed like a queen or a prince. It's worthless stuff. So the person of wisdom sees knowing value, importance in this world. Now, remember what I call the ruthless rule of the mind. The mind will return to the experience that's given it the greatest joy. Thank God, God is the most beloved, or we'd all be screwed. But if you do not have deep self-abidance, self-revelry, that means your greatest joy is going to be something in the world. So we shouldn't fool ourselves. We will continue to take the world as important until we cultivate as deeply as we can this self-abidance, this self-revelry. It's twofold. Renounce the world, turn within. Gita says, when a person casts off all the desires of the mind, first part, and is satisfied in the self by the self, both parts. But if you have no samadhi, you're fooling yourself. You're going to be attached to the world. And you can feel it. People's schemes, projects, business deals are really important to them. And then on the other hand, you'll find a mature yogi, and they may be involved in the same kinds of stuff, but you can feel that there's peace, there's acceptance, there's patience. And again, we check this out for ourselves. All right, next one. How many more do we have in this section? We should be getting toward the end.
3 more.
Okay, I think we can do them.
विज्ञात ब्रह्मतत्त्वस्य यया पूर्वं न संसृतिः अस्ति चेन्न स विज्ञात ब्रह्मभावो बहिर्मुखः. For him who has realized the essence of Brahman, there is no reaching out for sense objects as before. If there is, then he has not realized Brahman.
Yes.
His-
What number is this? Oh, I'm sorry. Did I cut you off?
Yeah, it's one more. His senses still have an outgoing tendency.
Yes. What number is this one?
443.
443. This is one of the most important verses in the book. So we should not fool ourselves. This is our indication as to whether or not we're rooted in Brahman. Please read the English again.
For him who has realized the essence of Brahman, there is no reaching out for the sense objects as before. If there is, then he has not realized Brahman. His senses still have an outgoing tendency.
Yes. Yes. So if you think you're realized and you're still jonesing for the world, means your senses still have outgoing tendencies. Four 43. Very important verse. Any thoughts or questions on this? Next one.
Prachina vasana vega asau sansarati chet na sadekatva vijnanan ammandi bhavati vasana. If it is asserted that still there is an attachment for sense objects because of the momentum of past vasanas, the reply is no. For the vasanas get weakened when there is realization of oneness with Brahman.
Yes, we call them roasted vasanas. When there's the realization of Brahman, there's no longer an addictive relationship with the world. And if you still have an addictive relationship with the world, no blame. There's just more work to do. What is the work? Tune up the mind, be empty. Keep the mind in meditation. Give up this world. Viveka and Vairagya. And then the last one in this section.
Atyanta kamar kusyapi vritti kunthati matari tathaiva brahmani gyate purnanande manishinyah. The propensities of even a downright rake are checked in the presence of his mother. So too, there are no more any worldly propensities in one who has realized the knowledge of Brahman, the bliss absolute.
So I guess it depends on your mother. But for most of us, even if we've been rascals, would you be that way in the front of your mother? Very interesting. But again, the idea here is that this Atma Ramana overwhelms the mind in the end. I think this is what Jesus said when he said, I have overcome the world. Doesn't mean he's boss of it all. It means that this Christ consciousness is what fulfills the heart. Krishna consciousness, this deep sannyas. All right, I think we'll quit here. Do we have any last questions? Again, as Hamlet says to his mother, assume a virtue if you have it not. So as we look through the marks of the Jivan Mukta, what we are to do is check out our own progress.
What's that quote from Hamlet again? I didn't hear it clearly.
The quote from Hamlet,
Yeah.
Hamlet says to Gertrude, because she's married her murdered husband's brother, Hamlet says, assume a virtue if you have it not.
Oh, if you haven't not. Okay, thank you.
Yes. Or in program, we would say act as if.
Ah, good point.
Same thing. Any other thoughts or questions? Wonderful section and some beautiful poetry in the Sanskrit. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om. Om. That's it. Thank you all.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Puneet.
Thank you. Good night.